Look, we have to take the emergency measures that are right for the country in the here and now, rather than have a government in Scotland that simply thinks its job is to commentate or to point the fingers of blame somewhere else. So we are setting out today emergency measures that we would take if we elect a Scottish Labour government on May the 7th. Now, we all want the war in Iran to end. We all want the ceasefire to sustain, but we also have to plan for every possible outcome because there is risks to livelihoods here at home. The fastest way to get stability in that region, into prices and into our economy, is for that ceasefire to sustain and for there to be peace. But we've also got to plan for the other options too. And we should be really clear where the blame for this lies. The blame for this lies in the illegal actions of Vladimir Putin in Ukraine, the illegal actions of Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump in Iran, and I say that as someone who has no truck for the Iranian regime. And that has caused an instability, it's caused a rise in prices. There's obviously the further complication about what's happening at the Straits of Hormuz, and what we will do if the instability continues and if the risk is still there to household incomes, to jobs and to prosperity in this country, we will act. And how we will act is we will do a £100 million emergency fund that will make bailout loans available to energy intensive businesses so we can protect jobs. It will mean we will give access to crisis loans and grants to households depending on their circumstances so we can protect household incomes. It will drive down the price of fuel at the pumps by bulk buying fuel so that we can drive down those prices. We will have an emergency summit with the supermarkets so we can bring down the prices of these staple items that people rely on, and we will redeploy the civil service so they are maximising people's incomes. For example, we know there are lots of people who are eligible for more money, pensioner households, for example, not accessing pension credit, or young families who aren't accessing their tax-free childcare. That's what we will do because we're not willing to just stand by and point the finger. That might be the approach that John Swinney takes. I don't look at a crisis and think, how do we make political gain from it? I look at a crisis and think, how do we protect jobs, incomes and families here in Scotland? Well, it's right that the UK is not part of any offensive action. This is an illegal war with no plan on how they were going to get out of it, and I think it demonstrates that the UK made the right choice not to get involved in this conflict. And there is a risk to lives, of course, in the region. Many of our allies, many Scottish citizens living in many of the countries that surround Iran, their lives have been at risk over recent weeks and months. That's why we need the ceasefire to sustain. But not only has there been a risk to lives in that region, there's a risk to livelihoods here at home. And that's why the opening of the Straits of Hormuz, the free passage of materials and goods through the Straits of Hormuz, has a direct impact on jobs and prosperity here at home. So I want the UK to play as much of a part as it can to sustain the peace, to have the opening of the Straits, to take the measures it needs to take to protect businesses and households. But I'm not just going to step back and think our job in Scotland is just to watch on. I'm going to use the full powers available to the Scottish Government, be an active government to make sure we're protecting jobs, household incomes and maximising people's support in the middle of a cost of living crisis. Well, we are doing the biggest, boldest, most ambitious campaign that Scotland has ever seen. I'm confident that when the Scottish public switches on to this election, that you will see a very different outcome on May the 7th. And I'm confident that when people see that the choice in this election is not about what's happening somewhere else, but about what's happening in Scotland, that they'll recognise we need change here.